I'm at the bank making money, making moves. Machines with tools and drills, making grooves. Missions impossible.
Hello and welcome back to In the Green with Invstr. Today my guest is 12-year-old Rehan Buvvaji, but don't let his age fool you. He knows what he is doing. Rehan has been able to become one of the fantasy finance game's most successful players and one of the app's most active users, all while still in middle school. Here is our conversation. How are you doing today, Rehan?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. So my first question to you is, how did you find out about Invstr?
Well, for me, I found out about Invstr through one of my brother's friends, who is actually one of the founders of Cash Club, a club that works with Invstr. So he showed me the app in the car, and it seemed really interesting because I'm actually very interested in sports, and the idea of fantasy finance just amazed me because combining such a fun thing with investing, it didn't seem possible.
Was Invstr your first experience ever investing in the stock market?
It wasn't, because I actually competed in the stock market game. That was, our school was supposed to do that in the 5th grade. I didn't really enjoy it very much because I was terrible at it. Our team actually came last, but Invstr kind of helped me through it, and they've educated me a lot.
You said that you struggled at first in your first experience with your 5th grade stock market game. What have you learned since then that has made you a more successful investor?
I mainly learned not to overtrade a lot. I would panic seeing a $5 loss on a $100,000 paper account, and I'd immediately close the position. It's mainly just learning about patience in the stock market and just learning how to choose a good stock and stocks you know about and you interact with in real life.
Awesome. So you mentioned something about the Cash Club and its partnership with Invstr. What is the Cash Club?
So the Cash Club is a high school club created by these 4 guys who go to the high school that I'm supposed to go to in the future. And I've had some contact with them, and we're actually able to open a branch. They've got multiple branches along with it, and they have a very big influence on the app. So they usually teach about just stocks in general and how, as a young high schooler, you can already get involved with the market and start investing your money into certain stocks such as Amazon, and you will see good returns in the future if you know what you're doing, which they teach you.
What's been your best month on the app?
My best month was, I think, in March, with the volatility and the lags with the app that were fixed in around April or May, but it was there in March. I think I got 13th in the IFL Fantasy League because it was crazy with all of the oil stocks and the market just crashing.
So what has been your larger strategy as you've been playing the game?
For me, I usually held a portfolio of 40 stocks that I just believed would grow soon, but my market sentiment has sort of changed, and now I'm only holding a certain number of ETFs as I think the market is about to, fall again. So I'm just playing it around that and not short selling, but buying stuff like the volatility index and inverse ETFs and gold, because my outlook on the markets is pretty negative right now.
So you mentioned earlier your interest in sports. How did that play into you enjoying Invstr in the fantasy finance game?
So Invstr with the fantasy league, I have actually done fantasy football for the last 2 years, and it's been really cool, trying to gain up the leaderboard, and I kind of saw that with Invstr also. So it kind of motivated me to keep on trading and investing and try to get to the top, as it puts such a big competition, and with them adding cash prizes, it was definitely incentivizing to continue trying to learn and get better at the app.
Are you better at fantasy football or fantasy finance?
That is hard to say. Fantasy football, I have failed a lot in the playoffs. I'd usually make it, and then my team chokes. Fantasy finance, it's been going well for me, but I hope to implement new strategies and test it out, and I hope to use Invstr to test out my strategies whenever I open a real money account and I start investing and trading off of that.
Have you tried out any of the stuff like the Academy or anything like that? Any of the other things outside of the fantasy finance game?
The Academy was probably one of the best things Invstr has posted. It took me a week to digest just one of the lessons they put. I think it was the fourth or fifth lesson when they were talking about foreign exchange markets and commodity markets. It took me a lot to digest, but I can tell you that I am much more knowledgeable about the markets because of Invstr Academy.
What has been your favorite thing about Invstr?
My favorite thing is probably the social media aspect about the app. Just being able to interact with other investors in the Invstr app and the amount of questions you can ask and get answered instantly, because there's so much helpful people like Hunter Berg and Thomas Quinlan who are always able to help out and just teach you about the markets. So I think Invstr has their own education, but you can learn a lot from the people on the app also.
What are some of the biggest things you've learned directly from the other people on the app?
I've learned from Hunter Berg just mainly my patience on the markets. He kind of shifted me more from trading to investing a good amount and trading a bit, because he knows a lot about behavioral finance, and he helped me a lot throughout that. And Thomas Quinlan also like helped me about like earnings, because he's very knowledgeable about news and earnings. So he helped me digest that a lot and to tell me what to see from those news events.
What advice would you give to another middle school student who has zero experience with investing and is just starting on the app?
I'd first suggest to go through the academy and just play around with fantasy finance for a few months. And if you can just learn a lot by the people around there, because that's all you really need to just put your money into the markets and then take it out in maybe the next 5 or 6 years to pay off your college. It could be easily like that if you start off very young. So them being young and starting off on this app is a very good incentive for them, because it puts them really well in the investing world in the long term.
Awesome. And I know you're technically too young to open up a brokerage account, but have you tried investing real money in any way, or have you just been doing it strictly through the app?
I don't manage my dad's portfolio, but we talk about it a lot, and we usually make investing decisions together. And the knowledge I've gained from Invstr has definitely helped us out with our portfolio, because in these times we thought of not going long on anything, just like swing trade stocks until the market crashes again with a second wave of COVID-19. So we actually got a good return on Norwegian cruises, and we've just been playing around like that. And we've actually made a lot of big moves in our portfolio, and we're looking to pick up some stocks once the second wave crashes.
Is there one trade in your investor career that you're most proud of?
For me, I think it was Sprint. It wasn't my biggest trade, but it was the first trade that I actually did some analysis on and took a monthly hold, and it returned about 30%. So I was really happy with that trade because it helped me go forward in my investing, and I got to try out new things because I was inspired by that 30%.
And then on the flip side, is there one trade where you're like, oh, I can't believe I did that?
I think it was the most recent one where I shorted Neo and Tesla because I was kind of fighting the trend for no reason, and it didn't end up well for me. So that was a mistake, but I learned from it, and now I know not to short against the trend unless I see a reversal.
Tesla's been a crazy ride recently for
Yep.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for inviting me for the podcast. This is a good experience.
Making money, making moves. Machines with tools and drills, making grooves. Missions impossible.
I am not a financial advisor, and my comments should never be taken as financial advice. Investments come with risk, so always do your research and analysis beforehand.